When I got home from work on Wednesday evening, Deborah, my wife of 10 years, was waiting for me. She motioned for me to sit at the table, signaling what I assumed would be a difficult conversation. She took a deep breath, expressed her love for me, and reassured me of her commitment to our marriage. But then, her next words caught me off guard. She told me she wanted to take a lover. I braced myself, unable to understand why she wanted to pursue someone else, despite claiming to love and cherish our relationship. I bluntly asked, "So, let me get this straight. You love me and want to protect our relationship, but you're proposing to be intimate with someone else?" She responded calmly, saying, "I've met someone I'd like to have a physical relationship with. It would only happen occasionally, and I promise to be open about it. If you truly love me, you'll give me this freedom, because I believe it won't hurt my feelings for you." Her words stung, and I struggled to understand her reasoning. Deborah, however, seemed unfazed, even smiling as she continued. She asked how I would hypothetically react if the roles were reversed, but I knew she wouldn't take kindly to such a suggestion. Despite my reservations, I tentatively agreed to think it over, with the condition that it wouldn't threaten our relationship. She laughed and said, "Bull crap. You'd flip out if I suggested it." I scoffed, catching her off guard. She seemed surprised and said, "I didn't expect you to react like this. I assumed your love for me would enable me to pursue something this important to me." I responded, "What are you smoking? Did you think I'd just let you sleep with this guy and not have any issues? Do you expect me to sit at home while you're with him?" She hesitated, admitting, "Maybe I didn't think this through properly. What do you think?" I replied, "Yeah, you didn't think through everything, including how I feel. If I say no, will you still go through with it?" She asked uncertainly, "I don't know. I didn't expect you to refuse. I didn't think it through very well." She suggested we take a few days to think it over and meet on Sunday afternoon to discuss it. That night, I went to the guest room, moving my belongings and slamming the door behind me. Sleep was elusive, but I began formulating a plan. If she went through with it, I knew we were done. The next day, I called in sick for 2 days, saying it was for personal reasons. I then bought 3 voice-activated recorders, placing one near the phone, one in the bedroom, and one in her car. I also installed a phone recorder and, under my name, requested a copy of her phone records from the cell phone company. While she was at work, I checked her email accounts and found one I didn't recognize. The password was simple to guess, and inside, I found a wealth of information. Fortunately, I knew she hadn't been intimating with him yet, so I set it up to forward any emails from this account to me. I also bought 2 small GPS locators, planning to put one in her wallet and the other in her car. That day was busy, but everything fell into place for me to keep track of her. The only thing left was to retrieve her phone later that evening and plant the GPS devices. Checking her emails, I found correspondence with Jeffrey Brown, a colleague, and learned about their plans for the upcoming weekend. On Friday, I consulted with a highly recommended divorce lawyer, instructing him to initiate proceedings, citing adultery with Jeffrey Brown as the co-defendant. My lawyer assured me that suing Jeffrey would be straightforward with the evidence I had: emails, phone records, and soon-to-be audio recordings. When Deborah returned home that evening, I remained silent and distant. She prepared dinner, but I left for a bar to eat and have a few drinks. When I came back, she tried to engage me in conversation, but I brushed her off, retreating to the guest room and slamming the door. The only way she could salvage our marriage was to cancel her plans with Jeffrey, but I doubted that would happen. I gave her the cold shoulder all weekend. On Sunday afternoon, I told her it was time to talk, and we sat down in the kitchen. I took the lead, expressing my deep dissatisfaction with her request. After much contemplation, I couldn't find any way to reconcile myself with it, despite her reassurances that it wouldn't affect our marriage. I told her it had already taken a significant toll. She became visibly angered, suggesting that if I considered her perspective, I might be more understanding. I tried to see things from her perspective, but I couldn't foresee any positive outcomes, so my answer had to be no. "How can you be so selfish if you love me?" she snapped. "I'm not the selfish one," I retorted. "Pursuing a sexual relationship with someone else is the height of selfishness. What if I go ahead with it anyway?" she pressed. I responded firmly, "There will be serious consequences for infidelity. We made vows of exclusivity 10 years ago." "I know, but this is something I feel I must do," she insisted. "Then I guess this conversation is over," I said. "You need to seriously reconsider your actions." Rising from the table, I walked out, feeling the weight of her decision. I went to work the next day, my mind racing with thoughts of how I could gather evidence to protect myself. I spent the afternoon setting up a strategy, including acquiring devices to monitor her activities. I placed voice-activated recorders around the house, installed a phone tap, and even checked her emails. I found one account I didn't know about, and after some effort, I gained access. I learned more about her plans with Jeffrey, confirming their intentions for the upcoming weekend, including reservations at a hotel and dinner plans. I was disgusted by how smoothly she was moving forward with her betrayal. Feeling betrayed and enraged, I booked a room next to theirs for the weekend to keep a close watch. I also gathered surveillance equipment to ensure I had irrefutable proof. The more I thought about it, the more determined I became. I knew what needed to be done to protect myself and get the evidence for my divorce. Thursday came, and I decided to give Deborah one last chance. I asked her to sit down with me again, urging her to reconsider, but she remained resolute. "I've made my decision," she told me. "I'm going through with it." With that, I realized she had chosen Jeffrey over me, and our marriage was finished. I stood up and left, slamming the door behind me. I drove to Kansas City, checked into a hotel, and set up cameras in the room. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Back home, Deborah was preparing for her rendezvous with Jeffrey. I found her new lingerie, and with a cold determination, I sprayed it with pepper spray before putting it back in her suitcase. I then closed all our joint accounts and moved the funds to a new one, canceling all the credit cards. It was time to say goodbye. By noon, Deborah was getting ready, and I made my move. I entered her room, where she stood in the lingerie I had once given her. She tried to cover up, but I couldn't help but comment, "You look amazing. It's a shame you never put in this much effort for me." She tried to explain, but I wasn't listening. "You seem more concerned about what he thinks than you've ever been about me." I gently removed her wedding rings. "I gave you this ring on our wedding day, and the engagement ring belonged to my mother, so I'll keep that. But I won't tolerate you wearing these while you're with someone else." Her silence spoke volumes, and I coldly added, "I won't be here when he arrives, but he can't come into my house. If you cross that line, there will be consequences. I'll be watching." With that, I turned and walked out, ignoring her protests. I parked down the street, watching as Jeffrey arrived. They embraced passionately, and she gave me a smug look before getting into his car. I responded with a flip of the finger, which wiped the smile off her face. When I returned home, I changed all the locks and the garage door code. After grabbing the suitcase I had already packed, I headed to Kansas City. Upon checking in, I set up my laptop in the room. The camera captured Deborah and Jeffrey already in bed, confirming that things had gone exactly as expected. Jeffrey's size was clearly inadequate, and I couldn't help but laugh when I saw his struggle. Deborah, visibly frustrated, tried to give it another go, but it was clear she was leaving unsatisfied. I found the whole situation amusing, yet satisfying. I focused on gathering evidence for the divorce case, making sure to record everything for my lawyer. By the time I returned to my room, I felt vindicated and even slightly relieved. It was as though a weight had been lifted off me, and I was free to move on. That night, I went out for dinner and drinks, content with the turn of events. The next morning, I ordered Deborah's favorite flowers from the local florist, the same ones I used to give her for our anniversaries. I timed the delivery perfectly, knowing it would arrive when they returned. As I expected, Deborah's face fell when the flowers were delivered. She dialed my number immediately, and I answered. "Hello, how are you?" she asked, sounding almost sweet. "Not worth a crap," I responded bitterly. "My wife is out with some other guy, and I'm stewing in anger." "Why do you ask?" "It's not like you care." "I just got a bouquet of flowers, similar to what you usually get me for our anniversaries," she said cautiously. "I wanted to know what you were up to." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. If I had sent flowers, trust me, they wouldn't have been pleasant. The card would have been scathing. I would have addressed my cheating wife directly. There was silence on the other end for a moment. "Well, I guess you know now what you're risking," I added. "I'm not some fool." I turned off my phone, cutting the conversation short. She called back a few times, but I didn't pick up. Eventually, she stopped trying. Later, she told Jeffrey about our exchange, and he reassured her that I'd come around. However, I had no intention of doing so. Around lunchtime, I ordered Deborah's favorite pizza for delivery. Just as Jeffrey was getting intimate with her again, the delivery arrived. He was irate and refused to pay, but the delivery person stood firm, confirming the room number and his cell phone number. Jeffrey reluctantly paid, and they opted to eat the pizza, their plans interrupted. After their meal, I placed an order for Deborah's favorite sandwich, which arrived just as they were getting back to it. Deborah speculated that I might have tracked their location. "I bet Jake figured it out somehow," she said to Jeffrey, still unaware of my involvement. "He's smart like that." Jeffrey seemed unconvinced but shrugged it off. They decided to get dressed and go out, planning to clean up when they returned. Deborah assured Jeffrey she'd make it up to him later. I was left laughing at how things were unfolding. Later that evening, as they came back, Deborah hurried into the shower, clearly in discomfort. She emerged, her chest and groin area bright red, suggesting that Jeffrey's performance had left her sore. Deborah, in an attempt to cover it up, claimed it was an allergic reaction to her new lingerie. Jeffrey seemed skeptical, but it didn't matter. The next day, I returned home, knowing Deborah would be facing more trouble. When she got back, Jeffrey didn't even escort her to the door. I was sitting on the couch, focused on the football game, and didn't acknowledge her. She walked right past me and tried to get my attention. "I'm home," she announced, attempting to be seductive. "You're not dead," I retorted coldly, not looking at her. "What would give you that idea? Do I look like I've become dim-witted over the last few days?" "I know you did," she said, defending herself. "But I didn't." "No," I interrupted. "I never thought you were foolish. But did you really think I'd just forget all this? Did you really think you loved me enough to move past it?" She paused, looking hurt. "I did love you. I still do. I realize now that I made a huge mistake. Is there anything I can do to make it right?" I shook my head. "You can get on your knees and eat my crap," I snapped. "But you know that won't happen." "I know you won't do that," she said, sounding desperate. "So I guess that tells me how much your promise to save our marriage is worth." "I loved you with all my heart," I said firmly. "But that was in the past. You broke my heart when you chose him. I told you how I felt, and it didn't matter." "I'll do anything to make it up to you," she pleaded. "I really want to make love to you tonight. I need you." "You need me?" I said, my voice stern. "I don't think so. As far as making love tonight, there's not much chance of that." Here's a rephrased version of the conversation. "Did you always use protection with Jeffrey every time you were close to him?" she asked. "No, he's married, and I can't have children," I replied, trying to explain. "You think you're the only one he's used that excuse on?" she shot back. "As far as I'm concerned, you're damaged goods. There's no way I would sleep with you until you get a clean bill of health from a doctor. And by the way, I don't do seconds. I know he's clean, but if you're worried about it, we can use a condom," she suggested. "Right? I'm going to use a condom with my wife after she spent the whole weekend unprotected with some other guy." "Screw you. You chose Jeffrey over me," I snapped. "I'm going out for a while. I can't stand looking at your cheating self anymore. Can we talk about this?" she pleaded. "We can talk tomorrow after you get home from work." "I don't know what else there is to discuss," I said, walking away to leave. I went to a nearby bar and grill, ate my meal, and cleared my mind with a long walk afterward. When I got home, I found her in our bed. I glared at her and said, "Get out of my bed. This is our bed. I have just as much right to be here as you do," she protested. "The hell you do. You gave up that right when you slept with Jeffrey. Now, get out of my bed, or I'll drag you out and throw you in the street," I retorted, my anger clear. Here's the rephrased version. She started crying and slowly left the room. I shut and locked the door behind her, still hearing her sobs echoing down the hallway. The next morning, I completely ignored her. We ate breakfast separately, and she left at her usual time. Before leaving, she turned to me and said, "I love you." I gave her a scornful look and responded, "I loved you too," making sure to emphasize the past tense. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned and walked away. Once she was gone, I started packing her things into garbage bags. As I worked, I called Jeffrey's wife, Deborah. I asked if she knew her husband had spent the weekend with my wife. She had thought he was away on business, so when I offered her copies of the evidence, she eagerly agreed to meet. When she opened the door, I was taken aback by how stunning she was. I apologized, explaining I was just surprised by her beauty, which was true. We got down to business, and I explained the events of the weekend. Deborah was furious, and we decided to go to the lawyer's office to see if he'd take her case. He agreed and even offered us a discount. While Deborah filled out the paperwork, I spoke with the lawyer and asked if I needed to wait to serve Jeffrey to protect Deborah. He assured me that as long as she signed the papers first, she'd be fine. Deborah and I went out for lunch while they prepared her documents. After she signed them, I took her home and then went back to mine to wait for her call. That night, around 3 a.m., my phone rang. It was Deborah, and she wasn't happy. "What's going on?" she demanded. "What do you mean?" I replied innocently. "I just got served with divorce papers, and Jeffrey got served with a lawsuit," she exclaimed. "Seems pretty straightforward to me," I said. "I warned you there would be consequences for your weekend, And apparently, you didn't take me seriously. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she protested. Maybe you should have listened to me instead of believing the nonsense Jeffrey was feeding you, I responded. I don't want to discuss this over the phone. We'll talk when you get to my house. Before I hung up, I took the garbage bags filled with her things and threw them onto the front lawn, preparing for her return. When she drove up, she exploded in anger. I recorded the confrontation, intending to use it for a restraining order if necessary. Despite her screaming and spitting, I stayed calm and composed as she vented her frustration. Finally, I broke the silence and said, "If you're willing to talk, you need to calm down. Otherwise, I'll pack your things into your car and you can leave." She cried, "I never thought you'd do this to me." "Do this to you?" I scoffed. "You did this to me. You did this to our relationship. I warned you over and over, begged you not to destroy our marriage, but you chose to ruin it. So why would you think I wouldn't file for divorce?" "You said you loved me," she sobbed. "I did love you. More than anything," I replied, "but you shattered my heart. The real issue is that you didn't love or respect me. I can't stay with someone who thinks so little of me." "But I still have feelings for you," she insisted. "Nonsense," I shot back. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have slept with Jeffrey this weekend." "Why do you keep calling him Little Jeffrey?" she asked, confused. "Because I have cameras in the room, and I recorded everything that happened," I said, my tone cold. "It's obvious why I call him that. The moment I saw his pitiful size, I laughed until I cried. I couldn't even tell if you could feel him inside you. You weren't climaxing like you do when we're together. What we had wasn't just sex. We made love. That's the significant difference." "I agree," she murmured. "What we had was real love." "Look at it positively," I said. "Now, you're free to be with anyone you want. You can have a different partner every night if you want." "I don't want that," she replied. "I want you and only you." "Let's go inside and talk for a bit," I suggested. "I apologize for being harsh, but I'm filled with anger right now. However, I know I would never physically harm you." The same can't be said for Jeffrey. We entered the kitchen and sat down at the table, a spot that had once been familiar and comforting. It hit me hard, realizing that this would be our final time sitting here together. She was the one to start the conversation, and I made an effort to stay composed, resisting the urge to speak harshly. "You wouldn't actually harm Jeffrey, would you?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Why not?" I replied, my tone steady. "He destroyed my once blissful marriage, and I believe he deserves consequences beyond just the lawsuit and the divorce." "He's not getting a divorce," Deborah countered, trying to defend him. "His wife agreed to your arrangement and allowed him to go through with it." I was skeptical of their motives. "I spoke to his wife this morning. I showed her the evidence. Now, we share a lawyer, and she even gave us a discount." Deborah's eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond immediately. I could tell she was processing everything I'd said. "I wish you'd been honest when I asked what you'd do if I wanted to be with another woman," I accused her, my frustration growing. "I feel betrayed by your lack of honesty." "You would have reacted strongly," Deborah said, defending herself. "I don't believe you. And that's exactly why we're divorcing," I said, my voice cold. "I don't care about your beliefs anymore. When you call him later, you'll find he's been ousted as well." "So, you're really kicking me out?" Deborah asked, seeking clarity. "Since the night you revealed your plan, I've been sleeping in the guest room," I answered, the decision made. Within an hour, I decided on the divorce. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" she asked, clearly confused by my silence. "I didn't think you'd stop. It would have only made you angry. I've explained my feelings before, but the choice had to be yours," I explained, emphasizing the need for personal accountability. "I saw the emails. My words meant nothing to you," I added, revealing the final straw in my decision. Deborah's expression faltered, and she admitted, "I signed the papers on Friday while you were preparing for your date." "I can't believe I was so naive," I muttered, reflecting on how long it had taken me to see the truth. "Is there any chance for forgiveness?" Deborah asked, her voice softening. "Deborah, I once loved you enough to consider it," I replied, my voice firm. "But last night was your final chance, and you squandered it. While I might forgive, I can never trust you again. Living with that uncertainty isn't an option. It's best we end it now." I stood firm, closing the chapter on our relationship. She burst into tears, but I remained resolute. "Unlike you, I've thought this through extensively. I've always come to the same conclusion. I'm divorcing you, and I'll make sure Jeffrey pays for what he did to our marriage." Before you leave, you can contact him to arrange a place to stay, but don't use your credit cards. They've all been canceled. I left half the funds in our checking account for you, but I removed my name from it. I'll split our savings with you. You can keep your car, but you're responsible for the payments. All your belongings and clothes are yours to take, and once you find a place, take as much furniture as you need. But the house is mine. If I sell it, I'll share the proceeds. All of this is outlined in the divorce papers. If you contest it, I'll use all my evidence, even if it means destroying you. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I'm prepared to do what's necessary. I won't fight it. This is all my fault, Deborah replied, her voice heavy with regret. I just wish I could take it back. I attempted to lighten the mood with a dark joke. You know the difference between a cheating wife and a light bulb? No. What is it? She asked, puzzled and still tearful. You can unscrew a light bulb, I said, trying to inject some humor into the situation. She didn't find it amusing. I escorted her out to her car, packing her belongings as she cried. Once the car was loaded, I handed her one last item, her wedding ring, flattened with a hammer. It's now scrap gold, I said, explaining the symbolic end of our marriage. After closing her car door and kissing her forehead, I said my final words, goodbye, my love. I turned and walked back into the house, not watching as she drove away. Tears filled my eyes as I collapsed into a chair, but this time, something was different. The tears didn't feel as heavy, and soon enough, I stopped crying. I felt a strange sense of clarity settle over me. The weight of it all had been lifted, but I still had work to do. Work on myself, work on moving forward. It was time to consider my options. Option 1, drown my sorrows in alcohol. But I didn't want that. That path had never been fulfilling. Option 2, stand tall, knowing I was blameless, and move forward. This was the path I chose. No longer weighed down by the past, I took a deep breath, and a new idea sparked in my mind. It had been with me for so long, always lingering in the background, waiting for a moment to shine. I had always wanted to be a guitarist. I remember the old guitar sitting in the corner of the room, gathering dust. It had been years since I'd picked it up, but now, it seemed like the right time to rediscover that part of myself. I grabbed the guitar, dusted it off, and tuned the strings. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of purpose. I began to play, not caring if my fingers fumbled over the strings. It didn't matter. I was doing something for me, something that made my heart feel alive. Each note carried away the last remnants of regret, and slowly, I started to believe in the possibility of something more. The next few weeks were transformative. I spent every spare moment practicing, learning new chords, and writing songs. Music became my therapy, my escape. It wasn't about becoming a famous guitarist or impressing anyone. It was about me, healing through the art I loved. As I improved, I felt a sense of pride I hadn't experienced in years. I played at small open mics, gaining confidence with each performance. I met like-minded people who shared my passion for music, and they encouraged me to keep going. It wasn't long before I started recording my own music, sharing it with a small but growing audience online. The feedback was encouraging, and for the first time, I saw a future that didn't involve the shadows of my past. One day, after a particularly rewarding rehearsal, I called Deborah, not to rekindle anything, but to let her know I was okay. I was genuinely happy, and it was time to tell her that. We talked briefly, but I was calm and collected. She wished me well, and I hung up the phone with a sense of closure. In the months that followed, I poured myself into music, growing as an artist and finding joy in every melody I created. I booked small gigs, and with each performance, I felt a little more alive. Music had become my new love, my new focus, and I was finally at peace with who I was. Eventually, I even found a new sense of companionship, someone who shared my passion for music, who understood the importance of growth and healing. We bonded over our shared love of the guitar, and I realized that, while my heart had once been broken, it had been mended in ways I couldn't have imagined before. Looking back, I saw how far I had come. I had been lost for a while, but I had found myself again. Not in another person, but in the music I had always dreamed of playing. I smiled, knowing that the best part of the journey was yet to come. I was finally living the life I was meant to lead, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.